Welcome back to the Kovacs Report. It's time to dive in to another Age of Revelation tie-in, and this time it's Radioactive Spider-Man number 2. Now, issue 1 was fraught with problems. It really, really was. Once I got over the fact that, Aunt May has become this huge mutated monster beast, because it had to be Aunt May, of course, I thought, all right, let's give it a go, because there was some good in issue 1. So I thought, let's see where this book goes. So it's Joe Kelly and Kev Walker on the creative team, and we are going to go through it page by page, so there are going to be loads of spoilers. Read the book first, like the video if you can, and please do hit subscribe. So here we have it, issue number 2. So Aunt May is a giant mutated mass of a creature that when she's that creature, she has no knowledge of what she's doing, because she transforms or reverts back to her normal human state. And in her normal human state, she's a very old woman at this point. She's suffering dementia. She doesn't remember things as she used to. So it is kind of tragic, okay? Now, listen, Aunt May was the obvious choice, which is why I was annoyed. I thought, let's do something different. But, I can understand why that would resonate with Peter Parker and why this story has some kind of, thread to follow. It is quite interesting. I'll give it that. Now, Cecilia Reyes is Pete's girlfriend in this, because it can't be MJ, right? And, we're adding 2 new characters to this story today. Yes, on this train, coming in at 900 kilometers per hour across Revelation territory, is Miles Morales and the Ghost Spider, Gwen Stacy. They're on the way to talk to Peter because they need to talk to him. It's very important they talk to him. And we jump back and we see Revelation Day. We see everything going absolutely bananas, something that they thought was something that was good, just happening, and they would fix it and find a cure, and whatever problem's going on, like they always do, come up trumps. They realize that isn't happening right now. We see, mothers mutate and vomit onto their children. Explosions are happening. Even the city itself, the buildings and the ground that they walk or swing over is mutating too. And he has the revelation of, pun intended, oh my God, what about Aunt May and MJ? So he rushes over to save MJ. And of course, we're not allowed to have MJ, and Peter in any kind of sort of loving relationship in 616. No. Of course not. Unless it's some flashback story. But of course, she's dead. And I think that's a bit of a cheap shot by Marvel. It's just them saying, don't even think about it. It's never going to happen. Just give up. I thought it was just a little bit of a dirty tactic. But they did it anyway. And it's supposed to hurt Pete. And of course it hurts Pete. So yeah, kill off MJ, put him where he needs to be, which is the worst place he needs to be. But as he looks up, he sees something even more devastating, and that's what's happened to Aunt May. If you watched or rather read the last issue, you'll see what she looks like. Anyway, he's reliving this in a dream, okay? And he wakes up screaming as Cecilia soothes him. And they've got a plan, okay? Because they brought her back because she has reverted to her human form. And we do learn that she is very, very forgetful. She doesn't remember a lot of things, and that her sort of mind is very fragile, and it could trigger and she will transform back into this kind of almost uncontrollable killer beast. But they've got a plan. They've got this power amplifier as part of this plan to amplify the shields and the powers that Cecilia has. And maybe they could do something about all this. So they have a little chit chat, like I say, which reminds us that she's losing it. She doesn't really know where she is. They brought her from Queens to Manhattan, I think. And we get another little flashback of Mary Jane dead there, just to remind us that Mary Jane's dead and she ain't coming back, and you're never going to get them together. And I think, actually, side note, a lot of fans actually hate her now. I was very surprised how people feel about MJ, and I guess that's down to what the Marvel have done with her story. Anyway, jumping back, okay, and she brings up MJ. She says, listen, this other day I made turkey loaf for you and Mary Jane, okay, because she thinks she's years ago, and he says she moved a while ago, because she starts, hold on, no, MJ is, and before she can sort of try and fully remember, he says, no, she moved a while ago. It's all right. I can't expect you to keep track of all the ladies in my harem. And she says, ha, Casanova, you are not. Thank God you finally settled down with someone willing to put up with your nonsense. Anyway, you can really do feel the love Peter has for her, and the pressure and the stress he's under. Joe Kelly's got that right. He has got a lot of things right in this book, and that's one of he gets Pete in this book. You can look at his eyes. The poor man is suffering for her. Now outside they talk about the fact they are 3 blocks away from other people. And if she does change, that's not going to be good. But Cecilia says, my force fields amplified are the best shot of averting disaster. He says, but if it works, that would hurt you a lot, okay? Because it takes the toll to use the powers. He says, I'm pretty tough. He says, but it's my problem. She says, no, it's our problem. Let's focus on a solution. And we go through what they've tried. They tried telepathy, restraints, tranquilizers. All didn't work. Even Sinister's suspension pod was on a kind that didn't work. And we learned they spent a decade looking for a cure to the virus. And he says, May will transform again unless. And she goes, no, we're not there yet. We're not. So there must be something, some last resort maybe, that they could try that might save her. Now, I believe it's going to be something to do with Pete, maybe his blood. Maybe he has to die to save her. And that's 100% okay. On brand, on character Peter Parker, because that's who he is. He will gladly give up his life and make sacrifices if it means someone else benefits and lives. And this is Aunt May, so of course he would probably do that. But she's like, no, we are not there yet. And he says, thank you for letting me try to save her. Now, he needs to steal some stuff from what used to be the Rand Applied building. It's one of the little gadgets I think they're going to use to help Aunt May. But of course, he is pursued by these red shirts, as I call them. Okay, they're just arbitrary characters that he's going to beat up or whatever. They're that kind of like, I think they're like some kind of police force, right? Anyway, it's not looking good for Pete. And he goes down hard. And just when it looks like it's all over, the classic trope of the hero, or rather savior, arriving at the last second, that happens. And who is it, of course? Well, of course, it's Ghost Spider and Miles Morales' Spider-Man. No, hold on. Correction. He's not called Spider-Man anymore. He's called Spin. Yes, Spin. Now, I think I've worked out why, and we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, they come in, we get a display of their powers, they take these bad guys down, and the fight seems pretty cool, it's dynamic, it's fast, and we learn that there's a bit of love lost between these two. They are not friends at this point. He says, I hear Miles' voice, and I want to cry. Though I remember the last words we said to one another, and I want to cry harder. He says, how are you here? Is there a cure? And he says, maybe if you came out of your hole once in a while, you'd know the answer to that. And you hear a call, Spin, not the time. I hate the fact they called him Spin. Anyway, Gwen Stacy is kind of like the voice of reason during this fight while they're fighting and arguing. And he says, no cure. We get a few hours tricking the virus into thinking that we're already mutated. Okay, which is something that was revealed earlier on. They basically got 26 hours in the Revelation territories before the X virus starts basically messing them up. So they've got to get in and out. And Spidey says, oh, that's cool. I poison myself with radiation so I can still get good bagels. Again, Joe Kelly can't write humor in this book. He really can't. And then Miles says, that was a mistake. Talk to him, Gwen says, all right? Talk to him. Anyway, the fight is over. They've taken down the bad guys. So now they've come to talk, right? So it should be a nice, amicable conversation. Anyway, Pete says, it sort of feels like you want to hit me. I want to hit me sometimes too. I'll give you a freebie. He goes, you'd never get up. And he goes, the Avengers need you out west, all the way out west. And he goes, Miles. And he goes, Spin. And it's like, I can't be called Spider-Man anymore because whatever happened between us, I don't even want to be sort of even related to you with the same name. So I've called myself Spin because, you know, Spider's Spin. It just feels a bit meh. He says, okay, all right. So he says, basically, make sure you get a bagel for the trek home. They're better than you remember, meaning I ain't going anywhere. And Miles says, do you know what we had to do to get here? And Pete says, I can imagine. My family's here. And then he interrupts, says, we used to be family too. Cecilia will understand. Then he says, May's awake. So what does Miles do when he finds out that Pete's not coming and that, you know, his Aunt May is awake and he's trying to save her life? Punches her in the face, punches him straight in the head and goes, that's why you're still here? I thought, well, hold on a minute. Why wouldn't he? If Aunt May's still here, the woman that raised him, there's one member of family, the woman he loves most in the world, bar, I guess, his girlfriend, right? Why is that difficult to understand? And then Pete says, Miles, stop. And then it's revealed through Miles that you said she was dead. Well, that's confusing because he said, well, that's why you're still here because May's here. That implies that he knew, right, that she was there. And he goes, well, if that's the only thing keeping you, it's confusing. Anyway, apparently, Pete lied to him. It's one of the things that happened in the past, I guess, that sort of, you know, made their relationship as tense as it is now. He goes, my whole family died and you're still trying to save her? What? well, why the fuck wouldn't he still try and save the woman who raised him? Just because someone else's family died and that's a bad thing, it wouldn't mean, well, because your family's died, I'm going to let my Aunt May die. What are you on about? This makes no sense whatsoever. They're trying to force in this sort of prior conflict between the two of them. And it doesn't work. And he socks him and he falls to the ground. He goes, how many people have to suffer because you won't? And he goes, woof. He goes, if it was your mother, would you? But like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Does Pete have some key? Okay, is the rest of the Avengers like going to fail because they don't have Pete? None of it's explained as why Spider-Man's important to them. It's not explained what Peter is holding back from the rest of the people fighting against Revelation and this X-Virus. I don't get it. Anyway, Gwen comes in with, so glad you went as chill as we practice. Pete, we came a long way and you need to listen to us before you kick us to the curb. Well, if they start punching him in the goddamn head, maybe he would have more time for them. Anyway. Gwen shows him something here and goes, look, tells, Spin to shut up, says, Gwen, I'm sorry, whatever it is, someone else has to. And then she intervenes and says, look at this. And I don't know what it is. It looks like a flat sheet of paper or glass that's shiny. It's like, the moment in Pulp Fiction when they open the briefcase and the light shines out. I'm not sure what it is. What is it? I don't know, because that's not real. It can't be. Sorry, but it do be. More Joe Kelly dialogue, trying to write young person's dialogue as a 55-year-old adult. Doesn't happen. It doesn't work in this book. Anyway, he says it has to be you, Peter. So there is something very, very integral to Peter coming back to help the Avengers do whatever it is they've got to do. I don't know what it is because it's not explained. I guess that's the cliffhanger for the next issue. Anyway, they go back. They say hello to Cecilia. And you can still tell that Miles is not really happy with Pete. They're still not friends. They have a little hug, and it's all nicey. And then we get, let the boys do their thing. Girls are going to be girls. Okay. And they go off. But here's where the big problem happens. As Gwen Stacy walks in, Aunt May notices her and goes, Gwen Stacy's dead. And they go, hey, that's not Gwen Stacy. You're confused. And he says, Miles, run away. She goes, I went to a funeral, Peter. I know what I'm seeing. Gwen died in the hands of that terrible Spider-Man. Who are you? Get out of here, he screams. And then she transforms back into that terrible, horrible beast. Oh, so she's triggered. And they're in trouble. So what are they going to do? Well, I guess Spider-Man is in a bit of trouble here. I think, is he going to sacrifice himself to save May? And if he does that mean he can't go back to the Avengers and help the many? The typical conundrum. Do I save the one or do I save the many? And that's where we are. So all in all, there's some glaring things in here which just don't make any sense. And it's break up the flow of this story. And again, this was really quite stretched out, I think. I think it could have been compressed and we got a little bit more information, which would have made it more interesting. But again, the art's lovely. That's issue 2. One issue left. And we have what we have. I'm not really sure how I feel about it. It hasn't blown me away. I like elements of it, but there's so few compared to all the other things, which I just can't in all honesty, say were good. So Radioactive Spider-Man is another dud in this Age of Revelation tie-in. I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised. Sorry, Joe Kelly. Again, I will say one thing. I think Kev Walker has done the best job he could do with the script. I am finding some of these Spidey books are getting really heavily inked as well. I think it happened over in Amazing Spider-Man 16 as well. So I'm not sure. I do feel like the inks are really sort of drowning in some of that heavy color. Well, maybe it's the black, so I'm not sure. But the art's nice. The art itself is really, really nice. Well, there we go. That is Radioactive Spider-Man issue number 2. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Always happy to chat. Like the video if you can. And please do hit subscribe. I really appreciate it. So take care, read more comics, and we'll see you soon.